We're on Corcoran Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C. I'm Dr. James L. Jones, and this is my wife,
Dr. Bernie Jones.
And this is our home, 1454 Corcoran Street. After the riots that occurred in '68, Bernie and I decided we wanted to find a place in the inner city because we are city people. And as we walked through the area, we happened on Corcoran Street, and basically it remained as though the riots were still here. And we saw this house, this one right here. It was not like that when we bought it. The whole block was still burnt out. But we decided that this is where we wanted to live, and we would fix this up to suit our purposes. We are just about 10 to 15 blocks from the White House. Location is locations, everything, and we love it. As we stood in front of the house, Bernie had this quizzical look on her face that says, this is going to be a tremendous job. And she voiced her opinion.
Well, the reason I had a quizzical look on my face is because at the time I was in law school, Howard's Law School, which was on Connecticut Avenue, and I thought that the commute might be a little difficult from where we were living at the time. However, I thought it was a good investment. So we decided to purchase the house and renovate it ourselves. So we lived here during the renovation period, one floor at a time, and it became a good opportunity for both of us to learn about the inner city.
Well, she's right. And this block looks very much different from what it did when we moved in. The whole block was burnt out, houses were boarded up, and there was a house of ill repute here, and there was some renovation going on way up there. But we decided that we were going to jump into it, and the results is what you see now. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, and it's still going on after more than 25 years. You know, when we started renovating the house, we found that there was a lot of space on each floor, particularly when we started tearing out walls. And we decided that perhaps some of the artwork that we had collected, we should hang. And we had about maybe 10 pieces that we had gotten from
from our travels. We travel all over the world, and we've collected a lot of different pieces that we'd like to show you later.
And one of the things we started doing is we started going to the back roads in Pennsylvania looking for black art, for memorabilia, and we found a lot of stuff. And at that time, it was very cheap, and only recently has it increased in value. And at this point, we start mounting the pieces, and people would come in, and they really enjoyed it. That inspired us to continue what we're doing, and we ultimately end up with what we consider a nice community museum, focusing on African American culture, history, and art.
At this time, we'd like to invite you for a tour of our museum.
This is one of the best walls we have in here. We visited Egypt, and Bernie fell in love with these pieces, and she knows more about them than I do. So, you know.
Well, we have here a batik that's handmade by the Egyptians. They use leaves and berries for the color. And above this batik is papyruses, and they're all made out of real...
Was it papyrus?
Papyruses. This is the hieroglyphic on this one below the papyrus that explains what is said in this picture. As you go down, you'll see another papyrus, and these are two Egyptian ladies. And here we have a cartouche that has a description of what they're saying. And all along the top part of this batik, you see the inscription of the Egyptians' writings. Further down, here is a king on his horse and another papyrus. And as we look at the batiks closely, you will see that each one has a writing detailing what the story is about on this picture.
Now, if you look up here, you'll see this is the Egyptian writing, and we have a dictionary that will interpret what these are. In fact, we had our wedding rings made into cartouches with our initials on it in hieroglyphics. And so, and they're made of 24 karat gold instead of 18 karat gold. That's significant in Egypt. But these are handmade, of course, and we just love these pieces. This is a relatively new artist, Justin Boer. And we saw him in Fells Point?
Yes.
And we loved his pieces. It was very new, and we just liked this. They were very reasonable, and we bought every one he had because they were so reasonable. And you'll find that the character in the faces of this artwork is just tremendous. And so you have to look at this, and everybody sees something different. Now this is the guardian of the hall right here. Bernie gave him the name right here. Why don't you tell him about it?
Him Gasper. And we got him in a place called Clinton's Court in Paris. We found that Paris had one of the largest collections of Black memorabilia and art in the world. So as you'll see as we go through the house, you'll see several pieces that we had shipped from Paris here. So this is our greeter, and he holds very expensive candy.
He is a candy barrier, but he really protects us because when the doors open, people see him, they think it's a real person. And sometimes I talk to him like he's a real person. We got him in Paris. It took 6 months to bring him over by ship. And here he's been with us now going on 27 years. Good man, good man. Now this is another wall that we put together to reflect a wider culture. We love Paris, and these large posters are from Paris and Salisbury. And of course, this came from Paris, which is a large poster advertising rum.
As we go up the steps, we see 3 pieces from the Musée du Louvre in Paris. They're very large prints. However, they discontinued the printing of these large pictures, so these are collector items. And below the Louvre, this is actually a picture of the Louvre at night. And below the Louvre, we have a painting called The Woman in Yellow. And she also is also a collector piece right now. As we go to the top of the steps, you see these 2 gentlemen, and they're holding flowers, and they also came from Clinton's Court in Paris.
These little guys came too, and there's some kin to Jasper downstairs. This is one of my favorite walls right here. This is my Black Indian wall. And I have a sign up there that says, "Don't tell me there are no Black Indians." We've been collecting Black Indians art. For example, in Paris, they got the Black Apache watches. If you look at that, you'll find that these are watches named after Black Apaches. These masks are model we lead from African American, Native Americans. And if you look at the features closely, you'll see the resemblance. And up at the top is my mother, Novella Battling Brook Jones. She often talked a lot, and that's how she got the name Battling Brook. When you look to the shelf over here, you'll find some majestic headpieces of Native Americans that we consider Black Indians. And these pieces, as you look at the features, you can really tell and get a good feeling Native Americans have a wide history of mixed heritage, and you'll find that particularly the Native Americans in Florida, they intermarried with blacks, runaway slaves, and that's how the population, one of the ways the population started is that, and they helped Osceola in the Indian Wars against the Americans in Florida. The dream catcher is very important in Native American culture. It's put in the window because it only lets the positive dreams in and blocks out all of the negative. So when you have a dream catcher in your window and you sleep with more than sweet dreams. You sleep with safe dreams. During our travels, and we go to a lot of powwows, I've taken over 500 pictures of black Indians, and this is just a sample. And they're in full regalia. They dance. This particular right here is called the Grand Entry, and we were at a powwow at Foxwood. Some 4,000 Native Americans from all over the country come in and form a concentric circle. These are two books, Black Indians by Katz, and this is the individual. Now, this book right here is recent, and Lonnie Bunch, the director of the African American Museum, wrote part of the introduction to this. But this is very important because a lot of people don't understand that there are Native Americans, Black Indians, and they are participating in the culture and keeping it alive. Now this room is particularly important because I call it the doll room. And Bernie got me started on the dolls by collecting and giving them to me for Christmas presents.
This is a Sally Mae collection, and they depict black folks entertaining themselves at church, playing cards with the entertainments, the hairdresser, the barber, and above that.
This right here is when African Americans began to decorate their homes with black lamps. These lamps, about the 1950s, started coming into being. And they basically sprayed other figures. They did not use African American models, as you can see. But you'll find that these were decorated in the 50s or late 40s in the home. Now these are some modern ones right here. Bernie, you picked those up for me.
Yes, they depict little boys eating watermelon, the guy sitting on a stump, the ballerina, the mother cooking food, and several other pieces that I collected at
the flea market. You'll find that as you see the images change, and you'll see later on the earlier Jim Crow Indians. And I'd like for you to, and these are my people down here. These are my dummies. One looks like Obama, one looks like Sarah, and the other one looks like Sammy. I do a little routine at stand-up comic periodically and practicing ventriloquist. I'm a non-talking ventriloquist. And it's a lot of fun when you do stand-up, trying to do something that you haven't done before, but it's a lot of fun.
Over here we have a collection of the Daddy Longlegs dolls. And they also depict black folks enjoying themselves, educating themselves, enjoy eating and playing games and sports.
Yeah, one thing unique about this artist in sculpturing these dolls, the faces are realistic and yet artistic, and they do not bear any semblance to the old Jim Crow. These are some actual models, but the interesting point about this is that this is the person who made these dolls right here, out of Texas. And she had some great African American models. And it's interesting because this reflects with an exaggerated face and sometimes African American, but they are not derogatory in any way. They simply accentuate the features. And you see over here we have the preacher, the clown, the sharecropper, the nun, the angel, the wedding party, which is really nice. And we have a lot of small pieces of children. And you can see that the smiles on their face suggest that they're doing all right. Over here are the reason they call them daddy long legs, because the legs are accentuated more than anything else, and I think that adds to the artistic creativity of the artist. If you look at the wedding party, you'll see she created an entire scene with the bride, the groom, the bridesmaids, and some of the visitors sitting in the pew. Bernie bought this entire section for me as a birthday present. Well, you know, we were talking about the daddy long leg dolls and how the legs are accentuated to give them a unique perspective and character. And that's really, this is probably one of the most interesting rooms. But I would like to direct your attention to two statues over here. I acquired these from a person who was a collector and who had decided to sell all of his pieces. Didn't have the name, but it's a great piece of artwork, sculpture, and I think it's made out of brass, and it's a beautiful black woman. And here, from the same person's collection, is another piece of sculpture. It looks more like Art Deco, but it just reminds us of Josephine Baker. And so we just named her Josephine Baker. This is our Ernie Barnes room, and it's rather an extensive collection. And we've been collecting this Ernie Barnes for about 40 years. And it's an interesting story because we started, his niece was selling 12 prints for $125, and you can see they're scattered throughout this room. We did not have enough room for all of the Ernie Barnes pieces, but I'll show you some more that we had to put in the restroom. Now this is some additional Ernie Barnes, and we have some more behind this curtain that we're trying to determine where to hang them. But he's probably one of the most premier artists in the world, notwithstanding the fact that he's African American. He is an artist exemplar. That's Sugar Shack from Good Times. You saw that on, I think the Cosby Show had it in the background. And this is a series of his Olympic ones. You don't see too many of those. They're hard to come by. That's basketball, this is boxing, this is track, and I have at least 10 more that this is basketball, and this is track. And I have at least 20 more that we just have to find place to put. I think this is most interesting, jumping seesaw with the two girls. The subject matter is just so creative and so realistic and just laced with cultural that we cherish, but often not portrayed in artwork. On this wall, you'll see a lot of advertisement. And this was during the Jim Crow period, where they used characters that were not complimentary to African Americans to sell products. And a lot of these are reproduction. They're still making these and selling them. And a lot of people don't understand that this is part of the history. And we understand how it came about because they were produced by people to sell products, making fun of African Americans. And it seemed to have sold because it went so long. But since this was during the Jim Crow period, it was not anything out of the ordinary for America to make these signs. A lot of them were made in Japan, and they're still being made. But it used to be rather embarrassing, but now, put in the proper perspective, it was just another gimmick to suppress African Americans, to make them appear less than who they were, and degraded their image. But that period is over, but it was a long time, and you'll see all of the angel mamas lined up there. And they were famous, and somebody made a lot of money by using African American images to sell products. And there are metal ones, ceramic, there are banks, and there are all kinds of images. Even cans. One of the most significant pieces is the shoe shine box, where you see the boot black there in improper character signing shoes. And then you have the chocolates and the Louisiana and all of those. They were advertising food using African Americans in a negative light and joking manner. And here you see that extended to the toys. These are toys, and the way they are played is that you would put them on your knee and they would dance like a buckboard. And that's Josephine Baker. They were hand carved. They are classified as folk art. I think they're fine art, but that's still up for debate. And some of the dolls that you see here, if you pan down, you'll see dolls here. These dolls are very significant in the history of African American culture because these dolls particularly were made by aunts, uncles, mamas, and grandmamas, and what they decided, rather than get a discarded doll out of the trash can, they would make a doll out of their own fabric in their own image and give it to their children. So they did not want to play with discarded dolls, particularly discarded white dolls. You'll see that these dolls are made with loving care, and this right here is a doll that's made to hold your sewing equipment. And this doll right here, and I'll have to open the case because this is very important. This doll right here is a topsy-turvy doll. And this is the black part of the doll. And when they turned it around, it was a white doll. Now this is very important because the nanny, who was black, babysitting for both her child and the white child, would have both of them play with the black doll. When the boss, slave master, came in, she would flip it and they would be playing with this doll. He never knew. Now, you think that This is no longer, they are still making these. This was made recently. If you can see this one right here, I can't open it, but this one in the corner, that's the black, it's a topsy-turvy doll purchased about 4 years ago in Charleston, North Carolina. A friend of mine bought it for me. Now we get to, all of these dolls are important. I think if you look at this doll right here, and if we had the opportunity, let me see. This doll was made out of an old Coca-Cola bottle and a sock. That's one of those big old Coca-Cola bottles and a sock. The genius and ingenuity of these doll makers far surpass, and they used old bits of cloth and buttons and things that they had around the house. But they were loving and caring and made with great love. Salt and pepper shakers came into being. It looked like every white family in America had to have a set of Angel Mama salt and peppers, cookie jars, and other pieces that became conversational pieces. The ugly images, and right here, we're still doing research. We do not know what the obsession was with black kids on toilet stool, but a lot of these were made, just thousands of them. And I'm still trying to find the answer to that. Now here's some degrading images up here. If you look at the history, you'll find that during the Jim Crow period, that the images were so degrading, trying to make African Americans look as animalistic as possible. So that's how you got all of these accentuated so-called ugly looks. But they were manufactured for a purpose of making sure that most people would view African Americans other than a human being. That was overcome. When you go down to, when you come over here, this was the same character was carried over in toys and banks. And the banks really, you would put money in this, take this one out, and you put the money in there and press it. And this guy would come back and pull the tooth out. All of them. The golf. And here, this is probably the most famous one of all. This is called the nigger bank. And can you imagine large banks having these available to the general public? You would put a coin in the mouth and you press this button and the coin would go in, you'd save. Now, there's an interesting story about this. Some antique dealers, in order to lead you to believe that this was authentic, they would buy these from China that looked like this, bury it in the backyard for about 6 to 8 weeks, sprinkle it with water, and make it look like this. So as a dealer, you would buy it thinking it's authentic. But if you've dealt with antiques, if you smell an antique, it has a certain smell that you just know it's an antique. But there's a lot of people selling things that are not authentic and duplicates. And when you buy them, it's all right to buy them as long as you know what you're buying. These are more degrading figures in glasses and figurines. These were collected just all over. And they were designed for one purpose, to make fun of African Americans. And and here you see glasses, and down here you see a clown as a bowl for candy, and this figure over here, a little old lady in a shoe. They took every possible subject matter and created a negative character involving African Americans. And it went over to toys. Even though the banks were toys, here we have this toy right here by batteries. I had to take the batteries out. All of these are working. They dance. Thermometers. Everything. Even they had the convict. Couldn't even allow the convict to go unscathed. So this is another toy. These toys are just priceless. You can't find them. And there's one that I won't expose, but when you deal with this character right here, there's one character right here, but we won't press his head because he's unclothed, and things may pop out, so we won't do that. Commercializing on whiskeys, liquor, also, and you'll find this rum bottle. They're very, very popular, and they even had CRISPR addicts on a whiskey bottle. How could that be? And of course, these wall ornaments here, placards, were bought in stores all over America and served as conversation pieces. And here is a cookie maker. Even you could make cookies and decorate them like that. No aspect was overlooked in creating negative images of African Americans. And this is an example of pots. And if you focus on the lawn sprinkler, that's an awkward piece of work to have sprinkle the lawn with the hose coming out of his knee. And it's just disconcerting and awkward at best for me to look at that piece. And these are pieces up here during the period when African Americans were beginning to decorate their homes, except for the piece in the middle, that's a recent statue. The slave piece and the horse, I got that from Lake Charles in Louisiana. They had two, but he couldn't find the other one. I brought that back in the plane on my lap. This is a slave figure. All of these other figures, when you're a collector, you buy it, you try to find out what it is later on, but if not, you just like it. And here's a piece made of tops, old tops right here, soda tops, beer tops. And these other figures here, the baby, and these figurines, all are, and if you look at them closely, their features are not quite as severe as some of the hard Jim Crow. But I think the trend was changing a little bit. Now, if you focus on, this is a very interesting story right here. The shoe shine boy, you could only get at a state fair. That is, if you won something, throwing a ball or putting a hoop, you had the choice of getting a black one or a white one. And most of the people chose based on their race. Black people chose a black one, white people chose a white one. Same thing with here. Now the watermelon eating thing is something that I think we're still investigating, trying to get the origin, but basically it's said that slaves were working in the field, they were hungry, they would get a watermelon, and they would bust it open, crack it open, and they had to eat it real quick with their eyes looking for the slave master. And that's how you get all of these images of African American kids and adults eating watermelon with the buck eye, with the eyes all buck, wide-eyed looking for the slave master. My contention is there's nothing wrong with eating a piece of fruit on the rind, except when this was developed, it created an image that today, a lot of African Americans do not appreciate that. Now, I think the most dramatic piece in this room is this particular poster advertising Uncle Tom's Cabin. And you would find, when you look at this piece, it's a significantly well done piece of art. The only thing that does not do justice is someone added large red lips. Without the large red lips, you would have a very handsome African American person. Also, the language at the bottom, just you come along, laugh at Uncle Tom's Cabin. That was a poster outside of a show. These two pictures to the right of that are pictures I picked up in Atlanta, prints of the inside of slave ships. And the artist Myers, Johnny Myers, and they are just outstanding pieces of artwork. You can't see behind here, but these are Civil War pictures of African American Civil War soldiers charging in various campaigns. And over to the right, as you can see, we consumed every possible piece of space on this floor and the next floor. And here we have more posters, advertisement, and some jazz figures that we picked up from Paris. I'd like for Bernie to tell you about what I think makes this room is the flowers. And I want her to explain, this is her hobby. And she has made all the flower arrangements throughout the house.
To accentuate the museum, I developed an array of flowers that would depict the various rooms that we're touring today. These flowers consist of lilies, chrysanthemums, and they bear the colors of the room, the purple and the white. And then they just have little fresh flowers mixed in with the silk flowers. So most people believe that these flowers are real. This is an Art Deco sofa that we purchased maybe 20 years ago. And it mixes with the black memorabilia in this room. And we particularly like the color of it. The purple and the white pipe strings matches the carpet, which is purple and white, and it has a French origin to the carpet. So it blends in, we think, quite well with the room.
We like a mixture of things. I think the art world calls it eclectic. That is, you can mix what you want, where you want, in any room. And I think the museums are moving in that direction. And we like it because you can come in one room and see more than one theme. And it's a good feeling. This is one of our favorite rooms because it has everything in it. It has the Black Jim Crow period. It has Native American. It has fine art in terms of the statues over there and the musicians. And it's just a great room. And the jukebox, that actually works. And I acquired that out of an old club. They had put it in the basement, the club closed, and it was Tiffany's. And I had it restored. And everybody loves this jukebox here. And let's see, we'll play, let's see if number one will come up. Yes, baby, you come. Everybody hears it, takes them right back. Oh, now you got to be of a certain age to appreciate this. But the sound is the original sound, and I didn't put the high fidelity. It took 2.5 years to restore this. And I'm going to hit complete restoration. I love this. Of all the things in the house, this is most precious because it's an era that I'm familiar with. I'm going to hit the reject button. And all of these guys right here, they appreciate being in the company of this beautiful 1948 Wurlitzer jukebox.
Roll up the shade, turn off the light. I turn back into bed, it was the middle of the night. The clock outside was striking 4. I heard the milkman at the door. Come on,
my baby. This is more Native American statues, art pieces, and they were collected from various places. And this is a Native American bank right here that's similar to the others, and it would come up. I don't like to work them too much because they're so fragile. Now, over here, the Buffalo Soldiers. As you know, they were scouts for the Union Army, for the United States Army, to track and rout out so-called rebellious Native Americans who were defending their homeland. And the story goes that they got their named Buffalo Soldiers because the Native Americans looked at their burly curly hair, and it was similar to buffalo hair, and that's how they named them. These are some dolls that I've collected over the years of Native Americans, and you find these in antique shops, and also you'll find them in some places. When you're a collector, now these are my black clowns, and you're just in love with those. You just see, collectors just collect stuff they like, and I like those, and a lot of people gave them to me for birthday presents. When these are some pieces up there that I felt would be appropriate for the collection. And if you look where the eagle is, you'll see that there's a picture that Bernie and myself that a friend of ours took. You can hardly see it, but we love that picture. Now, whenever we go anywhere, Bernie, why don't you tell them about all your Native American dolls that you collect wherever you go?
Basically, I collected the dolls at powwows. However, like this white one here and this one we got in New York at a flea market. And the rest of them came from our travels and or gifts. This piece right here is one of my favorite pieces. I bought this for Jimmy when I was in Paris with my girlfriend, and I carried it back on the plane with me. And Jimmy, I don't remember.
That's a Kachinka doll. That was given to me by a friend, and they're just symbolic of Native American culture. And this is a headdress over here that was given to me. And one thing about headdresses, they're made of real feathers, and over time, they will deteriorate. And that's why really you need to keep these encased in a plastic case or something, and that one is getting rather worn. But due to lack of space, I had to put it there temporarily.
Have you all visited the Native American Museum yet?
Oh yeah, in fact, I'm a member, and I have a brick on the 4th floor, Jimmy Brown Fox. And when they start to building it, I sent my contribution in because I wanted to be a part of that. And when you are part of two heritages, then you have to give equal credence to both. So being African American, part Native American, you do justice to both when you can. Now these are some of my neck pieces. That's my hobby. I make these neck pieces. None of them are the same, and they're great therapy when you sit down and make one. There's an interesting story. I was learning how to make them at Foxwood, and this elderly Native American sat with me 8 hours straight, wouldn't let me go to the bathroom. I was making one and I put a bead in the wrong place. I was about to unstring it. He said, no, you can never unstring that because it is a mistake, and that will remind you to always be careful when you do anything. So that story rides with me all the time. And when you have a hobby like that and you begin to make one, you kind of get in a zone. I do not make them commercially, and it's not a fashion statement. In fact, Bernie wanted one, and it took 2 years for me to make her one because I just was making them for me. And I wear them in lieu of ties because I don't know anything about the ties. But this piece was worn during battles among the tribes. And when they would throw a spear or shoot an arrow, it would carry off and protect the neck. And here you see right here, this big, when you see these That was the first bulletproof vest made of bone. So when the soldiers shot the round eyes, the round balls, they would carry off of these bones and never hit the enemy. So that's the first, as far as I can find, the first bulletproof vest. So these are the pieces that I wear in lieu of the tie. And when I really want to relax, I'll make one. And you can sit and make one for hours and completely relax. And I collect all of the things throughout when I go on powwows and different antique places. The last kind of thing in this room are these Native American pieces. And when you collect, you look at things, and if you think it fits, you acquire it. And it may not be exactly what you're looking for, but if you like it and it fits and you can afford it, I don't like to buy pieces unless I get it for the right price. For example, these two pieces here were in Baltimore at Fells Point. The guy wanted, I think, $500 a piece. I said, they'll stay in your shop, I'll give you $250 a piece. And I said, how many people are gonna come in here and buy these? And he sold them. That's my African collection. And those are various gifts that are considered fine art for Africans. They have yet to identify fine art for African Americans. And most ethnic groups have fine art. And we're trying to redefine what African Americans make in terms of fine art. Right now it's classified by some that I do not agree with as memorabilia. And it has to be fine art if it was done by a trained artist. And I'm researching that, and I found several studies that disagree with the classification of African American art. In fact, Native Americans have a law passed that I think would do us justice, and it's called the Indian Art and Craft Act, U.S. Department of Interior. What they have done is they passed an act that you cannot claim a piece of art is Native American unless it's authenticated by a tribe. And if you do and you sell it, there are serious fines. If you sell more than $1,000 first time violation and it's non-Native American, it will cost you $250,000 and 5 years in jail. And I think something similar could be had with African American art. And I think it's very important. Nobody can classify a totem pole except Native Americans. But we can classify anything that African Americans produce. They can say it's memorabilia, ephemera, or folk art. Only fine art, so they defined, can be produced by a person who's been trained in a major institution. That's one of the definitions. I beg to differ with that. I think African Americans have their own unique art, and it should be recognized as that. And there are several studies supporting my view. That concludes this room. Now we'll go to another room, which I call the hardcore Jim Crow period. This is what they call ephemera. I don't know the origin of the name, but this is the hardcore Jim Crow period image and producing to make African Americans look less than human. And you can see the Bull Durham, you can see the postcards, you can see all of these are images that are not worthy. But if you understand that African Americans did not have anything to do with producing these. This was produced by others who wanted to make a statement about keeping African Americans as close to being inhuman as possible. It carried over in literature by books, Uncle Tom's Cabin, Uncle Remus, Goodbye Uncle Tom, and one of the most famous of all, and I'll have to lift this up for you. I don't even know if I can get it up. The story of Little Black Sambo. That was most popular. And this is one of my favorites, saying that those were from Morocco. We visited Morocco, Marrakesh, Casablanca, Rock of Gibraltar, all down the Mediterranean coast, and picked up a few items. Every place we've traveled, we try to bring back at least one or two items to say that this is what came from that country, and it gives us pleasant memories. And one of the most famous, I would guess, restaurants in the South was this right here, the image of this restaurant, and this is fallen, Coon Chicken Restaurant. They were famous, and as you can see, what image they had is the Coon Chicken advertisement. All of this followed a trend to include, I think up here, where all of these are songs, vaudeville, and this is, all of these are really authentic, and they were entertainment of the times. And you had the minstrel shows, the interlocutor, and the Amos and Andy. And these are some, all of these you find when you go into the back areas and dig out. When you are a collector and you are looking for items and you have in your mind what you're looking for. And these are some prints of slaves being auctioned off over here. And that was a slave inside of a slave ship. And these are just bills of sales at auctions for slaves. And anybody that could think of anything that would show a negative light of African Americans, they would do it. And right now, and these were collected from various places. And a lot of people said, well, what do you want with this? I said, the purpose of this collection is to provide some insight into our history. And it is not to make you angry, nor to make you guilty, but to engender understanding, and through understanding and appreciation of the history of African Americans in this country. So when you look at this puts the history in perspective. It leaves nothing out. It adds nothing. As you can see, we're really pressed for space, but because this is a community museum and small, we had to produce and do what we could. And the more you look at these images, the more you understand that they are not us and somebody else made them, but they were widely distributed. It was tantamount to psychological warfare and propaganda to demean an entire people. These are just some of the photographs that we've taken over the years. People we've met, And this is a funny story because we found that people did not like to look at scrapbooks. So we decided to take some of the pictures out and put them on the wall, and they wouldn't have to sit and being bored with flipping pages. And all of these are places that we've been. We've talked to people and we've attended affairs. And a lot of them are photo ops. And this right here is Chief Pennington. He was chief of police in New Orleans and cleaned it up. And he was a chief of police in Atlanta and now he's retired. And this is Slick Willie President Clinton on Georgia Avenue. I think it was his first term. And Bernie there, you right there.
Judge Luke Moore and Jesse Jackson and Dean Smoke at the Howard University Law School and Carl Swartz.
And this is one of the Wilson buildings is named after him. And he was a very dear friend of ours, but he was very straightforward, spoke his mind, and you knew what was on his mind because he told you, did not, float around the edges. And these other pictures, I was with EEOC there, and I was working for a while. This one over here is most significant. This right here, there's research called pencil genocide. And in reviewing the 20 census, I found that my granddad, my grandmother, my mother's sister, and my mother, here's what they did. They looked at them and said that they were mulattoes, and they put MU, MU, MU. Then my Uncle Harry was MU. And here's whoever took the census, his wife, they looked at and said she was black, solely based on color. But then again, the daughters were initially wrote in black, and then they looked at them and said they are too light to be black, changed it to MU. So they wrote over black, MU, MU for the daughters. Now, this is some person looking at you, at your skin, determining whether you're a mulatto or whether you're black or white. Now, the interesting thing about this is that they said my grandfather, Henry Farmer, could not read or write. Now, he built this house right here. And what does that look like? Those are tennis courts. My granddaddy built tennis courts next to the house on this lot. We were not poor. There's a big lawn in front of the tennis courts. Everybody in Danville, Virginia, on Saturdays and Sundays would come in their white tennis outfits and their baskets after church and play tennis on my grandfather's court. My brother and I had the job of rolling them. This is where they were. So I tell people that even though the census said he couldn't read and write, he built this house and built tennis courts. And this was, what was I, 5 or 6? This was in the early 40s. And so I'm very proud of that. Of course, this is my mother. This is my grandmother. She didn't take no stuff. Hardcore, stern. And that's my aunt, that's my mother. That's Uncle Harry. Now let me tell you about the Indian stuff. Uncle Harry used to make homebrew in the basement. I helped him get the bottles and everything and washed them out. Now, he was all liquored up. I said, Uncle Harry, every time I go someplace, people said, oh, you ain't no Indian. I come back and I ask my mother, my aunts and everybody, they said, those people don't know what they're talking about. Don't worry about it, just don't worry about it. I pressed him. I said, I don't understand it. I went to school, the first grade in Danville, Virginia. The teacher said, don't come in here with that Indian foolishness. So finally he said this. He said, my father told us never to talk about anything Indian, no Indian stuff at all. He said, because if they find out that we have any Indian bloods, they will send us to the reservation and you don't want to go there. That's probably why a lot of African Americans with Native American bloods, they won't talk about it. I tried to get my mother to talk about it. Uncle Harry told me this story, and I am forever grateful. And that's my mother in later years, that's her sister, and that's me acting like a fool. That's Joan and her best friend. I was in the military for 5 years and got promoted. And this is when I worked for Walter Washington as a special assistant. One thing for the record, the Washington Post consistently says Marion Barry started the summer youth program. What does that say? District plans to place 60,000 in summer program. I ran it. We were doing 26 and 27,000 kids by hand before any computers, and they all got paid. So this summer program started when I took office. It was 68, right after the riots we got started. I don't call the Post to tell them that they're in error, but they are, and it's okay. We're at the summer program, and that's another story altogether, but that's about it. And this is the best place in the house. And I'll tell you, when you sit out here and you look at in the 70s when you moved in here, and I had a friend of mine working, and he said, you'll never finish this house. It has a deck on the 3rd floor, on the 4th floor, and on this floor, and parking space for 4 cars. And when we go upstairs, I'll show you the best room in the house, which is our living quarters, basically. But this is where we spend a lot of time, and we're guarded by our chief right there. And he watches over everything. And we just call him Chief. That's it. He's in charge of everything. Stands guard. So during the fundraiser, people had a great time. They sat out here and ate, listened to the music, and we raised more than $13,000 for the Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture. And it was important for us to do something to help. They need to raise more money, $500,000, to complete it. The government is doing its bit, but all of us, this is a museum about African Americans. Every African American, every American has a stake in this. Because this museum will put in the proper perspective and the historical proper place the contribution that African Americans have made to this country. And Lonnie Bunch and the Smithsonian are collecting items that will tell this story. And it is important that every American, be he black, white, whatever, let no color discrimination prevent anyone from participating and contributing to this museum, because this is for all Americans. And just like you go to any museum, you go to this one, you'll see something that's never been displayed before. And most of the people, the 200 people that came and contributed, you know what they said? We want to be a part of this. And that was a very significant statement for the people who paid to come here and made a contribution. And that's it. This is part of the Josephine Baker collection. We've been collecting her posters from the first time we went to Paris. And we just think she's a fabulous individual, not only as an entertainer, but when she retired, she had 27 foster care kids she took care of. So she's a great woman in all aspects. And we utilize all the space we can, and then we're going up to the third level. This is a continuation of the Josephine Baker collection. And wherever we go, if there's a print shop, we look for Josephine Baker. These three big ones we got in Paris. And right now, they are very, very rare and very expensive. And we cherish those, but Josephine Baker, not only a tremendous great entertainer, but afterwards she took care of foster care kids as a great humanitarian. And so all of these are, we just like Josephine Baker. So when we find a picture, we try to scoop it up. Now the one over the fireplace here behind you is one of the first ones that we got. And that's just Josephine Baker, and we like her. And that's the only explanation that we have.
Here we have a greenhouse that includes 2 dolls that my cousin made for us. This is Bernie, and that's Jimmy, and that's Ralphie, our son. And it gives plenty of light in the daytime, and it's just very comfortable. Very nice.
This is an interesting story because I had this big old sheepdog named Pasha, and there were 2 windows right here. So I came home one day, and Pasha is out on the roof, laid asleep, just like that. I looked out, I said, that would be a nice little room. So there was an ironwork guy working across the street. I contacted him and said, look, can you put a frame up here for me? He said, yeah, I can do that. So he made it. Now, the glass company told me that because of these angles, it would be very difficult, and if they missed a piece of glass and cut it wrong, I'd have to pay for it. So I got sheetrock, 1/4 inch, cut templates for every one of those pieces of glass, gave it to the glass man. He cut them. That thing is about 27 years old, hasn't leaked, and it's a great room. It brings light, and we put stuff in there, because see, we collect stuff. So we decorated for Christmas, and we just said, let's stay up, because I ain't going through that again. So these animals, that came from Cannes, or no, Nice. Jean Ball, that's John Ball. Fromage came from Flanagan's Court. And the big bird came from Mexico. What is it, Macau or something like that? And the Nutcrackers soldiers, they came from CVS last year. And I loved them. And they're nice. This is all our Nutcracker collection. And we collect stuff. I mean, when you collect stuff, it's almost a disease. So we start collecting nutcrackers. But everything we collect is within our economic bound and reason. Anybody with a lot of money can collect anything. The art of it is buying what you want at the price you can afford and that you want. If I can't do that, I won't get it. This is by an artist. We got this in Paris and that in Paris, and a lot of these small ones. And the artist is very famous, and I was trying to find Richard, but he's famous for his tango pictures, and I love the tango even though I can't tango. We got stuff from Japan, we got stuff from Rome, the Vatican, New Orleans, and I want to take you back to the New Orleans display that's on the second floor that we passed. But these are just souvenirs from places that we've been. And this is another one of Bernie's creations, the flowers. This is probably, I like, this is one of my favorites. This was in Egypt. We were going up the Nile, and this was in the shop on the boat that we were on. And the guy took a liking to Bernie and gave it to her for some ridiculously low price. And he autographed it at the bottom here somewhere. And that's one of the nicest pieces that we have in the place. And the rest of this is dishes. At one point, we were in the Erte phase. And those plates of Erte was a famous artist that drew beautiful women, and he had a collection of plates. And we really liked the ones up at the top, the Ertes. And they really are beautiful. And there's some over here with all of the Christmas stuff. And we collect stuff, and we try to find a place to put it, and sometimes it's difficult. This is the kitchen area, very small.
This is a collection of glasses that we've acquired from antique shops, flea markets, and various other countries around the world. They're very delicate, and we don't use them very, very much, but I think that they're very attractive for display. And this is a collection of towels. We got this at the Plaza in New York, and we stayed there 1 year. And the towels from the Plaza in New York right here, and 2 Oriental towels when we went to Japan.
There's an interesting story about this. I had an architect who's a friend of mine, and I told him that I wanted the hot tub in the kitchen. He said, no, that's a nice breakfast nook. I said, no, I don't want to go to another floor to get in the hot tub. I said, put it in the kitchen. Now, he said, in order to put this in the kitchen, we have to pull up this floor and reinforce the beams because it must hold 4,000 pounds with the water in you. So, I pull up the floor, put in the beams. They came in and did the tile work, and it's the best place in the house. I pop in it whenever I ache a little bit. If this were downstairs or someplace else, the use factor would be very low. Right now, I'll jump in this in a minute, and it's great fun.
And as you can see, I added another flower arrangement here that is color coordinated with the hot tub. This is our den, where we spend most of our time relaxing, watching television, listening to music. These 2 pictures reflect when we were modeling Jimmy in his native Indian attire and me in my American attire. And this is a portrait of me. And this is a picture of from Van Gogh's collection that we got at the Louvre in Paris. And on the shelves, we just have a collection of family pictures. This is a picture of my son. And that's a picture of my son and his wife. Our wedding pictures, our grandchildren, different events that we've attended. Jimmy got an award, Hall of Fame, years ago, and we attended another Hall of Fame ceremony. And this is Justice President of NAAHC, Kirk Smoke, President Dean of Howard University's Law School, and
Congressman Lewis, yeah. So a lot of
it's a birthday celebration.
So this is Bernie's collection. I don't know if she can get many more up there, but this is the clown at Floyd's house that we had here. She did a great job.
But if you look at behind the pictures, you see playbills. These are a lot of the playbills we collected in New York when we attended various plays and various comedy shows at Caroline's, like with Paul Mooney and David Allen Greer and Whoopi Goldberg, and just a variety of different plays that we've seen and comedy shows.
Now this is where we spend most of our time, on the little balcony, and it's really, really nice, and the breeze is great. And when we go upstairs, there's another deck upstairs, and we usually will take these stairs up. But this is a great. We have the George Foreman grill because it's electric, and I was afraid of charcoal fire, so we can sit out here and barbecue without worrying about charcoal falling and burning the place down. And now we'll go to the best room in the house, and that's the bedroom. It's a little warm, but we'll go up.
This is the bedroom, and as you can see, it has a glass roof, and I'll let Jimmy explain that to you.
Well, we saw this advertisement, and I love the outdoors, and this is the closest you could get to outdoors being indoors. So we made arrangements to have this done, and this is the best room in the house. It's hot during the day, but at night it cools off. But it's beautiful because you can look at the stars and you can look at the moon, and you feel like you're outdoors. My grandson had never seen the moon, and he looked up and he said, "I've not seen that before," because in the bedrooms, in their houses, they don't go outside to look at the moon. We can lay in the bed and look at the moon. And this is the best room in the house, and we love it. But what we really like about it, come on, Bernie, we have to go over here and, whoops, let you see the other room, the other deck, which is this. This is the deck on the top of the house. And we had to take this down because a big storm came, but we generally have this all set up. And before they built all of these buildings, we could see the monument. And I don't think you can see it at all now. And we could lay in the bed and look at the fireworks. And before they put those buildings up, we would have a nice cookout on the deck and look at the fireworks. And that was a tragedy when they threw up all of those buildings. But we still can see the fireworks, but we just can't lay in bed and look at them. But this right here, and there's the steps going down to the small deck right there. And come on, Bernie. Now you can access this deck from the little deck. Okay, be careful. Yeah. And so you can access this through this spiral staircase up here. I designed every feature in this house. All these rooms were constructed. They're on metal. No wood supporting these rooms. We had them added on, and they got huge I-beams. So when the storm came, this big tree here that they cut down fell on the deck, right there on the corner. The deck didn't budge because it's reinforced steel beams all the way down to the ground, 4x4 inch steel. And I said, we will not have this thing collapsing. And this is really a nice feature. We have small, in the fall, and we have small parties up here. We've given a lot of parties. We're slowing down now. But this fundraiser for the African American Museum was really a challenging event. So we'll go back in, and that concludes the tour, except for Bernie's closets, which she will explain to you.
Okay, I have a collection of hats and bags and Kashima shawls and pocketbooks because I'm in several clubs in the District of Columbia, and one club, the High Tea Society, requires that you wear a hat to any activity. Then there's the other, the Red Hat Society, where you're required to wear red hats. So I matched my hats with my bags, with my shawls, and with the larger bags. And here we have some of my shoes that coordinate the hats and the bags and the shawls. You can zoom in this way. You see the other part of the closet.
So you get some of this stuff from some of these shoes from Imelda Marcos?
That's
I've
right.
seen so many shoes.
Oh, they were having a field day at the fundraiser. Did you come up here during the fundraiser?
No.
Oh, they were trying on their hats and the shoes, and one lady said, I see Jimmy Choo shoes. She says, can I try them on? I said, sure. These are t-shirts that I collected from the countries that we traveled, though.
But tell him what's behind the glass door over there.
Oh, furs and leather, right? I can't open it too much. Furs and leather.
Okay.
Now, Don, let me tell you the story. What you're standing now was the original bedroom. And she kept putting stuff in it. So when I saw this advertisement, add a room and glass, I said, let's do that because the room stopped here. So she started piling clothes up, and the bed got smaller. So when I saw this, and we got it for a really good deal.
Do you wonder where his clothes are?
On the second floor where my office is.
Yeah, just like my brother.
Yeah. So that concludes just about everything. I can't think of anything else. We really appreciate you coming, and we really needed this done just to have things documented, because we'd never done this before. And I feel very comfortable that this will serve a purpose for grandchildren and people to come, and they will know that you can take a piece of property and use your imagination and make it your castle. And this is truly our castle. And we enjoy it, and we love other people to enjoy it. because we've given several New Year's Eve parties, party for my law class, her law class, fundraisers for Marion, fundraisers for
Linda Croft.
Linda Crop, my frat had, and so we used the house to entertain because we have a good time doing it. And we have a lot of friends, but this last fundraiser for the African American Museum was one of the most enjoyable, productive social events that we've ever given in this house, because not only did we have a good time, we raised money for a most worthy cause. And as a result, we think that the museum will be a great success. And Don Baker, I want to thank you for covering this.
Thank you so much.
And you've always covered the historical events, and you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame because of your photography, because you've captured, during your era, the same type of events that Scurlock did in a different era. You put those two, put what you and your brother have photographed with Scurlock's, and you will have the history of this city in continuity. And thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.